Bill Morneau, first of all, thanks for taking time to speak with me. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Let me, you look at these numbers and the better than expected financial picture. You could have spent money in a lot of different places. You chose the Canada Child Benefit and you chose the working income tax benefit. Why those two?
We actually chose three, of course. We chose those two and also the small business tax cut. So,
right.
But why those places? You know, it's important to think about where we're at and how we got here. Going back to 2015, we said to Canadians that we see a real sense of middle class anxiety. We see that people aren't feeling like they're getting ahead. And so we're going to make investments in middle class families and helping people to get ahead on the idea that those investments were going to give people the confidence to put money back in the economy, for their families in the first instance, but for the economy in the second instance. And we've seen exactly that happen. So now we're in a situation where we want to do a little more for middle class families through the Canada Child Benefit, just to make sure that that keeps up with inflation. That's really critically important to us. And we want to acknowledge that a significant number of Canadians are in a lower earnings level and did not see, in some cases, the benefits of the Canada Child Benefit. So by increasing the tax credit for the families that are, the individuals and families that are at that low income level, we have a real impact on them, measurable impact, and they're going to put that money back into the economy. So it's really doubling down on a strategy that's worked. And with respect to small businesses, it's saying that, you know, we know that most of those businesses are actually middle-class businesses, and if they can invest more, it's going to be better for our economy, it's going to be better for their business, and eventually better for their family.
Let's talk about returning to balance, because, you know, that's what a lot of people are talking about. And my question is this: if you can't chart a path to return to balance when the economy's pumping along as it is, if you can't do that or won't do that now, when will you do it?
Let's take a look at what we've done. We've shown that in just a few short months, you know, from March until October, that we can show that based on growth, we're $8.5 billion better off right now than we were expecting to be then. We're showing a superior position all the way through the 5-year time period. So my view is that we need to make sure that we're always balanced. So the idea of investing in families, so giving people the ability to keep up with the cost of living on their Canada Child Benefit, we think this is the right thing to do to keep that confidence level high. Remembering that confidence is the important underlying factor that's gotten us here.
Right.
Helping those that are most challenged to get a little bit better and to see the opportunities. This is what we think will allow us to keep with this positive outcome that we've got. And we're doing it in a very fiscally responsible way. Every year along the cycle, you can see that from what we showed in March to what we're showing now, every single year, we're finding that we're in a better fiscal position than we were projecting before. And at the end, what we're showing is that our debt to GDP, the debt as a function of our economy, is going to be at the lowest rate that it's been since 1977. So, you know, if that's not fiscally responsible, Peter, I mean, I think I'd ask, what is? Better than we've seen in 4 decades?
Okay, so
that's positive.
Maybe you're redefining fiscally responsible. Maybe that's okay. And by that I mean, is the argument around the need to have a balanced budget, is that argument now overrated as far as you're concerned? That's just, that doesn't necessarily mean something or send any kind of a signal. If you can do what you're doing and have an economy performing the way it is, what does it matter if you're in balance? Is that your thinking?
Well, I think what I'm saying is that we're a leader among G7 countries in terms of the debt as a function of GDP. We're showing real fiscal responsibility. We have a much lower deficit compared to our peers in the G7, with the exception of Germany. All the other ones are in a different situation than we are. We have the capacity to do this. I don't buy into the argument that some people have that we should be trying to immediately move to some sort of balanced position. I think the idea of taking $10 or $15 billion out of our economy right now wouldn't be a good decision. Wouldn't have been a good decision in 2015, wouldn't be a good decision now. For those people that are saying you've got to focus on balancing the budget, I'd ask them, which is it? Do they think we should be raising taxes right now? Or do they think we should be reducing spending on people? And because those are the two big places that you have that impact.
Okay,
our view is keeping that growth rate going, which allows us to be fiscally responsible, which allows us to trend down that debt to GDP over time. That is fiscally responsible. It's doing things in a gradual way. For people who want us to do it more rapidly, most of them are the same people that told us 2 years ago that you need to find a way to balance the budget right now.
Well, okay, then the other side of that is you don't have to do it as rapidly. So by that I mean, you projected that you would have $8.6 billion. The deficit would actually be $8.6 billion higher than it is. So why didn't you spend to what you expected the deficit to be? Why didn't you say, well, look at this, the economy's performing fantastically. It's doing much better than we thought. So we've got this pool of money now available to us to go do a lot of the other things we said we wanted to do. So why not spend up to what the projection was going to be?
Because we wouldn't have thought that that was fiscally responsible. We think that managing an economy like the Canadian economy requires us to get a balance, to think about how we can continue to benefit Canadian families. That's worked. To make sure they stay confident, getting that balance right, but not to do things that will drive us either into a situation where our fiscal position is eroded, or to be spending more than we should be spending to achieve the goals that we're trying to achieve. So I think what Canadians can look at, this is their midterm report card. They can say that this government has done exactly what they said they're going to do. They've invested in my family. They've made me have more money to spend for what I need, and at the same time, they've improved the economy. Back in Budget 2016, we showed a path, the most optimistic path of growth, what would happen to our net debt to GDP, and that's where we're at. We are on the optimistic path because the investments we made worked. So all I would say is that the path that got us here, the reason people elected us, that's the path that we're continuing to follow. Keep investing in Canadians because we have confidence that they're going to do the things that will allow our economy to keep growing and doing it responsibly.
How ready are you if NAFTA collapses? That's the other argument, is people saying, yeah, you haven't, in this economic update, you haven't taken into consideration what might happen if NAFTA collapses, if there's a serious downturn to the economy in the next couple of months, or the next 6 months, because it's not likely to chug along at the rate it's going. I think most people agree on that. What's your response to that? That if you had set out a plan to balance, that people would feel more comfortable about the storms that might be on the horizon?
My first response is what we're showing today is an economy that's much more robust than people were thinking just 6 or 7 months ago. So we are clearly more resilient to face any challenges, whether the challenge is a downtick in growth in China, or whether the challenge is a protracted NAFTA discussion. We are more resilient to face those challenges because of the positive situation we found ourselves in, because of the economic policies we've put in place. We, of course, are going to continue to work hard to make sure that we get to a better situation with NAFTA. We also always have been provisioning for any risks. You know, we think that there are downside risks and upside risks to the projections, and we've provisioned $3 billion across the fiscal projections we've made into our budget in case of those risks.
Which do you think are the prevailing risks? I mean, is it about an even trade-off here, that the economy is likely to outperform expectations or underperform expectations? Is that a 50-50 prospect in the next 6 months?
I think the risks are more balanced today than they might have been a couple of years ago when we weren't seeing the global economy doing quite as well. But there's still risks on both sides. I mean, what are the risks to the economy? We have external risks, of course, risks around global growth. Some of those can be positive and negative. We could see potentially global growth going faster than we expected. We could see that potentially there could be increased growth in the United States. Those things are possible. We have a high level of household indebtedness in Canada. That's something we're paying very close attention to, and we've been working hard on in terms of making sure our rules around housing in particular are appropriately balanced. So there are always going to be risks on both sides of the equation. Our job is to project carefully and to keep some fiscal room for managing those risks. We think we're doing that.
Let's finish on this. We'll hear from the Governor of the Bank of Canada tomorrow, and I suspect he'll get asked about this too. So on the one hand, you have a government that's been stimulating the economy and getting the results I think you want. On the other hand, the bank has already raised interest rates twice, and not likely to happen on Wednesday, but rates will go up again. Are you concerned about that possible contradiction? You have a government stimulating the economy and a central bank that's going to worry about having to tamp it down.
Well, I wouldn't characterize it the way you just characterized it. We're making some investments in Canadian families. We're doing it pretty carefully. We're indexing the Canada Child Benefit to keep up with the cost of living. We're increasing the working income tax benefit starting in January 1st, 2019. So I think we shouldn't over.
Okay, so nothing you're doing, you believe, is doing too much to heat up an economy that the bank may be worried about getting too hot at some point.
We're being absolutely consistent with what we came into office saying we wanted to do, which is focus on Canadian families, but we're also being careful as we do it. We're doing it in a way that is, as you correctly identified, allowing us to lower the debt as a function of our economy, and we think that's the right way to do it. We recognize that we're in a position in terms of the economy that's better than we expected, and so we need to do things in a balanced way. We think that's what we've achieved.
Okay, Bill Morneau, thanks for this.
Okay, thanks, Peter.